Murder was just the beginning. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
Hossencofft is behind one of the most bizarre and infamous murder cases in Albuquerque. In 1999, he killed his estranged wife, Girly. To this day, her body has not been found. Now, decades later, he's asking that his plea and life sentence be thrown out.
At 8 a.m. on September 10th, 1999, Girly Hossencofft failed to show up at the bank where she worked as a teller. Her coworkers immediately became concerned about her welfare and reported her missing only 10 minutes later. Investigators searched Girly's apartment and discovered evidence of a violent struggle, including pools of blood that someone attempted to clean up with bleach. Testing later determined that the blood in the apartment was from Girly, her estranged husband, and a third unidentified source. Today, we're talking about the disappearance of Girly Hossencofft and the absolute insanity that surrounds her disappearance and murder. Honestly, this episode has it all. Girly Hossencofft was born on August 27, 1963 in Malaysia. She would periodically come to the U.S. to visit, and on one such visit in the early 1990s, she met a doctor, Diazian. Hopefully someone can correct me on that. It is not a name I've seen very often. Hossencofft at SeaWorld. They began to talk, then they kind of struck up a friendship, writing letters to each other, and eventually Girly moved to the U.S. and married him in 1992. Dazian, let's call him Dazian, and Girly were married in 1993 and settled in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Seemingly a nice, modern love story. In January 1999, Girly moved out of the couple's home and filed for divorce after a domestic violence incident where Dazian had smashed her car's windshield not once but twice, threatened to kill her as well. She knew that he had been unfaithful previously, but she wasn't sure what he was capable of. Girly also made contact with an FBI agent who was surveying her, which opened up the floodgates to a whole bunch of information that she had no idea about. She was scared, she was paranoid, she began taking karate lessons for self-defense. Girly told her coworker that if anything happened to her, anything at all, to immediately contact authorities and ask them to investigate Dazian. He was not the person she thought he was. So who was Dazian Hossencofft? Sure, he may have been a normal, mild-mannered husband and an Albuquerque doctor, but he wasn't that really. He was born Armand Chavez in Houston, Texas on March 5th, 1965. He falsely claimed that he was a thoracic surgeon with degrees from the University of Tokyo and Cornell Medical College, but he had falsified his transcripts and was expelled from medical school. After that, he changed his name to Dazian Hossencofft for whatever reason, and that's when he met Girly Chu. But there is more. Dazian claimed to be a medical doctor, something Girly believed up until their separation, but he also said he was a CIA agent. He also claimed to have beat leukemia, and during my research, there were times where he said he had leukemia, he had 10 months to live, he had beaten leukemia, but he made most of his money selling cancer patients vitamin B6, but telling them it was a cure to their cancer. Even more outrageously, Dazian claimed he was 2,000 years old and had invented a youth serum that stopped him from aging entirely. The FBI became aware of Dazian back in 1995 when he attempted to purchase a bioreactor from a Philadelphia, Pennsylvania company, saying he was conducting cell growth experiments. The company refused to sell the device to him due to its potential uses, and, of course, a little wary that just a man who was privately practicing wanted to buy a bioreactor, contacted the FBI. At that point, Dazian was under surveillance but was not arrested. A year later, a woman in Canada gave birth to Dazian's son, Dimitri. Shortly afterwards, Dazian brought Dimitri to New Mexico and told Girly he was a Mexican orphan and they were adopting him. She didn't learn that Dimitri was her husband's biological son until 1999. I mean, at this point, you must be wondering a lot of things if you are Girly. She was likely not having a good time in the relationship. She was likely trying to plan her escape at this point. Diazian was cited in a 1998 domestic violence incident after choking and threatening to kill Girly. She told authorities that she had confronted his previous girlfriend about what I would assume was a bunch of very shady shit, and when Diazian found out, he flipped out. So in January 1999, Girly was absolutely done. She files for divorce and moves out. During this time, though, Diazian was not just sitting, hanging out, chilling out, he was busy. He was, at this point, engaged to 3 different women while still being technically married to Girly. One of these women was named Linda Henning, who literally looks like the opposite of Girly in every way. She will factor into this. But that is not all. Diazian was also busy placing his son Dimitri up for adoption with a nearby couple. Investigators believe that Diazian wanted his wife to drop any custodial or property rights, and realistically, he was in the beginning stages of plotting her murder. So who is Linda Henning? She was Diazian's new girlfriend and was born on October 10th, 1953 in Hollywood, California. After high school, she worked as a fashion model and later became a successful designer. When Diazian and Henning met in 1999, she was engaged, but quickly broke up with her fiancé and became re-engaged, if that's a word, to Diazian. So you might ask, what did these two have in common? Oh, they both shared a very strong interest in government conspiracy theories and UFO research. It is September 10th, 1999. Authorities are searching Girly Chu's apartment. They found signs of a struggle. Along Highway 60, they also discover a blood-spattered pink and orange shorts, green and white blouse, and green underwear wrapped in a blood-stained gray tarp, along with some duct tape with a strand of, guess who, Linda Henning's hair attached. Girly's purse had been discarded on a nearby street. Diazian, not suspiciously at all, leaves Albuquerque on September 10th and travels to South Carolina, where he is apprehended several weeks later. He's initially charged with placing threatening phone calls to 3 people in New Mexico, not even for what is happening with his wife. Diazian in custody, police turn their sights on Henning. Following the search of Girly Chu's apartment, police have questioned Henning, who appeared as a personal reference for Diazian. In her interview, she claimed that she believed that Diazian was an accomplished doctor and that she had no knowledge of Girly Chu's Hossencofft's disappearance. Later, she said she didn't even know Diazian's missing wife, but Linda had banked at the branch where Girly worked, and Girly had been Linda's teller on at least one occasion. In a search of Henning's home, investigators recovered a ninja sword in her attic, which was purchased on the morning of Girly's murder. This is kind of all they needed. Linda Henning was charged with perjury for lying to the grand jury in October 1999. All the while, Henning's friends and family are shocked by this. They insist that she'd been drugged or brainwashed by Diazian, as her behavior was completely changed after they started dating. Before her involvement with Diazian, Linda had never been in trouble with the law, nothing normal. In November of 1999, both Henning and Diazian were indicted for Girly's murder. According to friends and authorities, Linda still believed that Diazian's false claims were true and attempted, up until the very end, to convince her friends that he was an established scientist. Diazian pleaded guilty to his role in Girly's homicide in January 2002 and avoided the death penalty. He was sentenced to life plus 61 years in prison. Henning was tried also in 2002 and pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree murder. At her trial, Diazian confessed that he was a reptilian shapeshifter and capable of being in several places at one time. He also implied that they did not find Girly Chu's body because it had been cannibalized. Diazian said that he allowed his friend, a militia member named William Bill Miller, to murder Girly for practice before the climax with the alien New World Order. Because of the blood evidence in Girly's apartment, authorities believe Henning may have injured herself during a struggle with Girly, or Girly injured her prior to Girly's presumed homicide. Diazian claimed that he had stopped at his estranged wife's apartment at a prearranged time on September 9th and attempted to clean the blood and additional evidence left at the scene. Diazian said he returned to his home and located a refrigerated vial of an unidentified woman's blood. He occasionally obtained blood samples from others under the guise of scientific research. Diazian claimed that the vial broke before he could pour it inside Girly's apartment to throw investigators off track. He said he used a sample of Henning's blood in its place and diluted it with bleach in an attempt to impede DNA testing. Okay, sure. Fine. Diazian maintained that Henning was not involved in Girly's murder. He pushed Miller as the sole attacker. Henning was found guilty of murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, perjury, and evidence tampering, but was acquitted of 10 other charges. She was sentenced to 73 years in prison, where she is today. Bill Miller, again, accessory, accomplice, who knows, was only charged with evidence tampering. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 months probation. Diazian Hossencofft himself never revealed the location of Girly's remains, but authorities believe Girly's body is probably within the Socorro County, which is close to Albuquerque, possibly along the US 60. I hope so. I mean, I hope it was not cannibalized or anything. You know, this is a really tragic case. And honestly reminds me a lot of, like, if you've watched The Vow, some Keith Raniere shit.
It really amazes me how one person can do so much and get away with so much with so many people. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe my lack of confidence, where I don't think I could get many people to go along with something. And I guess maybe if you are surrounded with the right people, which I'm sure if you are, you know, if you have the psychological profile of this person, they know how to find other people. And we find our people one way or another. And when he got his biological kid from the mother and just handed it over, I don't know what the circumstances were, and then tried to pass it off as an orphan, I think, and again, this is going to be I'm going to say something very broad strokes, but that thing where you're like, I am a doctor. Mm-hmm. When you hear that, and who's going to because is probably an intelligent person in some way, went to medical school, so at least he's not somebody who's just like, let me look it up on Wikipedia and see what being a doctor is about. Maybe for some reason that's enough to open the door to believe many other things. And again, that's a huge broad strokes. I'm not trying to, diminish people's ability to be reasonable and their believability of things. But, sometimes you hear somebody's like, oh, I'm a doctor. And it's like being a doctor or being, I want to grow up and be a doctor. I want to grow up and be president or a lawyer or a scientist. Or, it's these things that, are always put up if you say you're that and it's believable. And it's like, well, I mean, they're a doctor. I mean, how can I say no to what they're saying? I mean, I would love to I'm very curious to hear this guy's life before this. Be surprised if it's not a documentary or something like that. It's just a very interesting, because it has the idea of scamming and hoax and conspiracy. It checks off all the boxes, as we say.
And you wonder if this guy, or where it broke, like, is he an evil mastermind, con artist person, or is he a conspiracy theorist kind of wrapped up in trying to game the system kind of a thing? He also, it's hard for me to imagine this stuff with people who have, like Henning herself, like people around her who seem normal and like she has a healthy family life and social life, and like what makes this person so compelling to leave your other life behind. I mean, same thing, with Girly Chew, where it's like, oh, it takes a lot to change your life, to have one person, this like one axis in which your whole life is changing, and the promises that they make and the person that they are, to be so convinced,
He was engaged to 3 people while still married, so he had the ability to make things happen. And what I wonder is, what would be the end goal to all this?
Yeah. Because
it didn't seem to be like, well, I need to murder her because she knows this. It just seemed to, and would there be more people? Mm-hmm. Would there be more people willing to do more for him?
Yeah.
Would it become a cult? And if you believe in a lot of government conspiracy things, like, what is the end result? And I'm really curious to what that end result might be. It seemed to get away with a surprising amount, but maybe, I don't know, I'm always surprised at what people get away with for so long.
Truly.
But when you change your name and you say you're a doctor, I mean, I'm really reducing this a lot, but I feel like that's, okay, well,
yeah,
that's
we're
okay.
socialized to believe these titles and not need, any added information, any extra information, any credentials, really, even. And this guy, he does look very like Keith Raniere type, where it's like intense, authoritative, I don't know, sure.
And then changed his name to a very interesting name.
Bizarro, yeah.
It's a bizarre name. It's like, all those things I think are created to confuse people or to, have a certain like aura around you.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yeah, it's like, again, I hope I'm saying this. Diazian, never heard that name before. Hossencofft, like a Northern European, like German, like where's that?
But
What?
his birth name was Chavez,
Yeah, his birth name was Armand Chavez.
which is a great name.
Chavez,
But
yeah. It's very sexy and compelling already. What do you
it would
need?
make it easier for you for this episode if your
Exactly.
name was that the whole time.
That's for sure.
I think the opposite would be is telling people that you have a podcast.